Damien Cross was a name synonymous with power and privilege. From humble beginnings, he had clawed his way to the top, building a multi-billion-dollar empire through sheer determination and cutthroat strategies. His days were filled with high-stakes meetings, private jets, and luxurious penthouses overlooking glittering city skylines. But beneath the polished exterior lay a man disconnected from the world around him. Damien moved through life like a ghost, untouchable, unapproachable, and indifferent to the struggles of those less fortunate. To him, success was measured in profits, acquisitions, and influence, not in relationships or emotions. Yet, despite his immense wealth, Damien often felt empty. He worked tirelessly because stopping meant confronting the void inside, a loneliness he couldn't quite explain. Friends were few, and family non-existent after years of estrangement. Work became both his refuge and his prison. One evening, exhausted from yet another grueling day at the office, Damien decided to clear his head with a rare late-night walk. The city park nearby offered a quiet escape from the chaos of urban life. As he strolled along the winding paths under flickering lampposts, the cool night air brushed against his face, momentarily soothing his weary mind. Little did he know, this simple decision, to trade his gilded cage for a moonlit stroll, would lead him to a discovery that would shake the foundations of everything he believed in. Something caught his eye up ahead, a dark shape huddled on a weathered wooden bench. At first glance, it seemed insignificant. A pile of blankets, perhaps, but as he drew closer, the truth revealed itself in stark detail. What he saw next would change his life forever. As Damien approached the bench, his steps slowed. The dim light from a nearby lamppost cast shadows over the scene, but it was enough to reveal a young woman lying motionless on the cold wood. Her face was pale, her lips slightly blue from the chill of the night. Beside her, two small children, babies, really, lay bundled together in threadbare blankets, their tiny chests rising and falling with each breath. They slept soundly, oblivious to the danger surrounding them. For a moment, Damien stood frozen, unsure what to do. This wasn't part of his world. He'd spent years building walls around himself, insulating his life from anything messy or unpredictable. Helping strangers wasn't in his playbook. It was someone else's problem, surely. But as he watched, guilt began to creep in. How could he walk away? These weren't just statistics or headlines about homelessness. These were real people. A mother fighting to protect her babies against all odds. He knelt beside the bench, his expensive suit brushing against the damp grass. Gently, he reached out to check if the woman was breathing. Relief washed over him when he felt the faint warmth of her breath against his fingers. She was alive, but barely. The babies stirred slightly at the movement, their little faces scrunching up before relaxing again. Damien glanced around, searching for any sign of help, but the park was deserted. It was just him, the woman, and her children. Pulling out his phone, he dialed emergency services. "I need an ambulance," he said firmly, giving the location. "There's a woman unconscious on a bench in the park, and she has two infants with her." While waiting for paramedics, Damien did what little he could. He removed his coat, a bespoke piece worth more than many people earned in a year, and draped it over the sleeping babies to shield them from the biting cold. Then he sat vigil beside the trio, his mind racing with questions. Who was she? What had brought her here? And why hadn't anyone noticed until now? When the ambulance arrived, Damien stayed close, ensuring they received immediate care. Paramedics worked quickly, loading the woman onto a stretcher while carefully wrapping the babies in thermal blankets. One medic turned to Damien. "Are you family?" she asked. "No," he replied honestly. "But I'll stay with them." His response surprised even himself. Why had he said that? Logically, his involvement should have ended once the authorities arrived. Yet something inside him refused to let go, not yet. At the hospital, doctors confirmed the woman was suffering from exhaustion and malnutrition, likely brought on by prolonged stress and lack of proper care. The babies, though underweight, were stable thanks to quick intervention. As Damien waited in the sterile hallway, seated among empty chairs and fluorescent lights, He couldn't shake the image of the three figures on the bench. Their fragility haunted him, their vulnerability exposing cracks in a society he'd long taken for granted. And then it hit him. This wasn't just their story. It was his too. Because tonight, he had been given a choice to turn away or to step forward. And for reasons he didn't fully understand yet, he'd chosen the latter. Hours later, the young woman, Elena, slowly opened her eyes in the hospital room. The sterile white walls and beeping machines were unfamiliar, but the warmth of blankets and the soft hum of activity around her signaled safety. For the first time in months, she felt a flicker of peace. When Damien entered the room, Elena's gaze darted toward him, wary yet curious. He introduced himself gently, explaining how he'd found her and her babies on the park bench. "I'm glad you're okay," he said softly, pulling up a chair beside her bed. "Can you tell me what happened?" At first, Elena hesitated. Sharing her story meant reliving pain she'd tried so hard to bury. But there was something sincere in Damien's voice, something that made her trust him, if only for a moment. "My name is Elena," she began, her voice trembling. "I used to work as a waitress, but when the restaurant closed down, I lost my job. Without income, we got evicted from our apartment. I didn't know where else to go." Tears welled up in her eyes as she continued. "It's just me and the twins. My husband passed away 2 years ago in an accident. Since then, it's been a constant struggle to keep us safe. I tried shelters, but they were full. Friends either couldn't help or disappeared when things got tough. Last night," she paused, swallowing hard. "Last night, I thought staying on the bench was better than nothing. At least the babies would have fresh air." Her words struck Damien like a punch to the gut. Here was a woman who had fought tooth and nail to protect her children, sacrificing everything along the way. Meanwhile, he lived in a world where such struggles were invisible, hidden behind boardroom doors and bank accounts. "What are their names?" he asked, nodding toward the twins sleeping peacefully in bassinets nearby. "Lucas and Mia," Elena replied with a faint smile, her face lighting up despite her exhaustion. "They're my reason for everything. No matter how hard things get, I can't give up. Not while they're counting on me." Damien felt a lump rise in his throat. In that moment, he realized how much strength Elena possessed. A quiet resilience born not from ambition or wealth but from love and sacrifice. Over the next few days, Damien visited Elena regularly, bringing updates about her condition and ensuring both she and the twins received top-notch care. He arranged for private rooms, hired nurses, and covered all medical expenses without hesitation. Yet every act of generosity left him grappling with uncomfortable truths about his own life. Why hadn't he noticed people like Elena before? How many others were out there, struggling silently while he lived in luxury? One evening, as Elena grew stronger, she turned to him with gratitude in her eyes. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "You don't owe us anything." Damien hesitated, searching for the right words. "Because someone should," he finally replied. "And because maybe I needed to learn something too." Elena studied him for a long moment, sensing the weight behind his answer. Though she didn't fully understand his reasons, she could see the sincerity in his actions. As the days passed, Damien became more involved, not just financially but emotionally. He learned about Lucas's fascination with peekaboo games and Mia's habit of sucking her thumb while sleeping. He listened intently as Elena shared dreams she'd put aside after becoming a mother, dreams she hoped to reclaim someday. Each interaction chipped away at the walls Damien had built around himself, exposing parts of his heart he'd long ignored. He began to see Elena and her children not as recipients of charity but as individuals worthy of dignity and respect. Their presence reminded him of the humanity he'd forgotten existed outside his gilded bubble. By the time Elena was discharged from the hospital, Damien knew his involvement wouldn't end there. This wasn't just about saving a family, it was about rebuilding lives, including his own. Elena's discharge from the hospital marked a turning point, not just for her and her children but also for Damien. As he stood beside her, watching nurses carefully bundle Lucas and Mia into their stroller, he realized that sending them off with temporary aid wasn't enough. This family needed stability, security, and hope for the future. Things money alone couldn't buy unless paired with genuine care and commitment. "I want to help you rebuild your life," Damien said firmly as they walked out of the hospital doors. "Not just today, but for the long term." Elena looked at him, startled. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Damien explained, "that I'll make sure you have everything you need. A safe place to live, resources for the twins, and support to get back on your feet. You shouldn't have to fight this battle alone anymore." Tears filled Elena's eyes, but she shook her head hesitantly. "I don't want charity. I can work. I just need a chance." "It's not charity," Damien replied quickly. "Think of it as an investment. In you, in your kids, and in something bigger than all of us." Elena didn't respond immediately, overwhelmed by his offer. She had spent so long relying solely on herself that accepting help felt foreign and frightening. But deep down, she knew she couldn't turn away this lifeline. Not when it meant giving Lucas and Mia a better life. "Okay," she whispered finally, "but let me earn it. Please." Damien nodded, respecting her determination. Over the following weeks, he worked tirelessly to create a plan tailored to Elena's needs. He rented a small, cozy apartment in a quiet neighborhood, ensuring it was fully furnished and stocked with essentials before she moved in. He arranged daycare services for the twins so Elena could focus on finding employment without worrying about childcare. And perhaps most importantly, he connected her with counselors and mentors who could guide her through the emotional toll of her experiences. At first, Elena struggled to adapt to this sudden influx of support. The apartment felt too grand compared to the cramped shelters and park benches she'd grown accustomed to. The idea of trusting someone else, even someone as generous as Damien, felt like stepping onto shaky ground. But Damien remained patient, visiting regularly to check on their progress. He brought groceries, played peekaboo with Lucas, and read bedtime stories to Mia. Slowly, Elena began to relax, realizing that his intentions were sincere. One afternoon, while folding laundry in her new home, Elena turned to Damien with a thoughtful expression. "Why are you really doing this?" she asked again, echoing her earlier question. "You barely know us." Damien sighed, leaning back against the couch. For weeks, he'd avoided confronting his own motivations, focusing instead on practical solutions. But now, faced with Elena's probing gaze, he knew he couldn't dodge the truth any longer. "To be honest," he admitted, "I'm doing it because I've been blind for too long. My whole life I've chased success. Money, power, status, but none of it ever made me happy. Finding you and the twins, it woke me up. It reminded me what really matters. Family, compassion, and making a difference in ways that last." Elena studied him silently, recognizing the vulnerability beneath his polished exterior. In many ways, they weren't so different. Two people searching for meaning in a chaotic world. "You're already making a difference," she said softly. "Not just for us, but maybe for yourself too." As months passed, Damien's involvement deepened. He helped Elena enroll in vocational training programs, allowing her to pursue a career in graphic design, a passion she'd abandoned after becoming a mother. He introduced her to networking events, encouraging her to step out of her comfort zone and reconnect with her ambitions. For the twins, Damien became a constant presence, a surrogate uncle who spoiled them with toys and books while teaching them simple life lessons. Lucas adored building block towers with him, while Mia giggled uncontrollably whenever he made funny faces during playtime. Through these interactions, Damien rediscovered parts of himself he thought were lost. Laughter returned to his life. Not the polite chuckles exchanged at corporate galas, but genuine, belly-deep joy sparked by the innocence of children. Empathy replaced indifference, filling the void he'd carried for years. Yet challenges remained. Adjusting to parenthood-like responsibilities tested Damien's patience and priorities. Late nights at the office became less frequent, replaced by evenings spent helping Elena navigate paperwork or playing hide-and-seek with Lucas and Mia. Board members raised eyebrows when he missed meetings to attend parent-teacher conferences or doctor appointments for the twins. "You've changed," remarked Claire, his longtime assistant, during one particularly hectic week. "I hope so," Damien replied with a wry smile. Because the old me wasn't worth much. By honoring Elena's request to earn his help, Damien ensured their relationship stayed grounded in mutual respect rather than dependency. When Elena landed her first freelance design project, she celebrated not just the paycheck but the validation of her hard work. "This is for you," she told Damien proudly, handing him a handmade card decorated with colorful drawings of their family. Inside, she'd written, "Thank you for believing in us when no one else did." Reading those words brought tears to Damien's eyes. For so long, he'd lived for accolades and achievements, yet nothing compared to the gratitude shining in Elena's smile. Together, they proved that kindness isn't transactional. It's transformative. By choosing to step forward that fateful night, Damien hadn't just saved a family. He'd begun saving himself. As time went on, the impact of Damien's decision rippled through every corner of their lives. For Elena, having a stable home and unwavering support meant more than just survival. It gave her room to dream again. With access to education, resources, and encouragement, she began rebuilding not only her life but also her sense of self-worth. Elena threw herself into her graphic design courses, excelling in ways that surprised even herself. Her creativity flourished under the guidance of mentors who recognized her talent and drive. One evening, as she proudly showed Damien a logo she designed for a local business, her eyes sparkled with pride. "I never thought I'd be able to do this," she confessed. "But now, I feel like I can give my kids a future they deserve." Damien smiled warmly, genuinely moved by her progress. "You're doing it all on your own, Elena. I'm just here to cheer you on." Lucas and Mia thrived in their new environment too. The twins, once frail and quiet, blossomed into energetic toddlers full of curiosity and laughter. Their daycare teachers praised their development, noting how quickly they adapted to structured routines and social interactions. "They're amazing kids," Damien remarked one afternoon while watching Lucas stack blocks into an impressive tower. "Smart, resilient, and full of personality." Elena nodded, her heart swelling with gratitude. "They've been through so much, but they keep surprising me with their strength. And it's because of you. They wouldn't have had this chance without you." Damien shook his head modestly. "No, Elena, it's because of you. You fought for them every step of the way." Damien's transformation was equally profound. Once consumed by work and material success, he now prioritized moments over money. He learned to savor simple pleasures, reading bedtime stories to Mia, teaching Lucas how to draw shapes, and sharing meals with Elena as they discussed their days. His colleagues noticed the change. Gone was the relentless executive obsessed with profit margins and power plays. In his place stood a man who spoke passionately about balance, purpose, and giving back. "You seem different," remarked Claire during a meeting. "I am," Damien admitted with a grin. "Turns out, there's more to life than spreadsheets." He reconnected with old friends, many of whom had drifted away during his years of isolation. Inviting them over for dinner, he introduced them to Elena and the twins, who charmed everyone with their wit and warmth. "They're incredible," one friend said afterward. "You've done such a great job with them." Damien shook his head humbly. "They're the ones doing the hard work. I'm just trying to keep up." The twins' presence didn't just change Damien. It transformed his entire household. The once silent penthouse came alive with color and personality. Hand-drawn pictures decorated the fridge, mismatched socks peeked out from under couch cushions, and the sound of laughter echoed through the halls daily. Even his staff noticed the difference. Margaret, the housekeeper, often caught Damien dancing awkwardly in the living room with Lucas and Mia, all three of them giggling uncontrollably. "They're teaching him how to live," she told a coworker one afternoon. "Not just exist." But perhaps the most significant change was within Damien himself. For years, he'd carried guilt and regret over his detachment from the world around him. Now, caring for Elena and her children allowed him to channel those emotions into something positive. Every act of kindness he extended to them felt like a step toward redemption, a way to honor the humanity he'd ignored for so long. One rainy afternoon, while helping Lucas assemble a puzzle, Damien paused mid-instruction. You know, he said thoughtfully, your mom is one of the strongest people I've ever met. She's taught me what really matters. Lucas looked up, his eyes wide. Like what? Like family, Damien replied. And love. And never giving up, no matter how tough things get. Tears welled up in Elena's eyes as she watched from across the room. She knew Damien wasn't just talking about her. He was reflecting on his own journey. Through these shared experiences, Damien realized that family isn't defined by bloodlines or legal ties. It's forged through trust, care, and mutual growth. By opening his heart to Elena and her children, he found healing for wounds he hadn't known how to address. And by stepping into their lives, he ensured that his legacy would be one of compassion rather than wealth. Together, they proved that broken pieces can form something beautiful when held together with care. Years passed, and the bond between Damien, Elena, and her children grew stronger with each passing day. What started as an act of compassion became a deep, unbreakable connection. A family built on love, trust, and shared memories. For Damien, the journey had transformed not only his life but also his understanding of what it means to be truly wealthy. Elena flourished under his support, turning her passion for graphic design into a thriving career. Her work gained recognition, earning awards and accolades that once seemed unimaginable. Yet she never forgot where she came from, or the man who had believed in her when no one else did. I couldn't have done this without you, she told Damien one evening as they celebrated her latest achievement. You gave me more than resources. You gave me hope. Damien smiled, shaking his head modestly. Hope was always inside you, Elena. I just helped you find it again. Lucas and Mia, now lively preschoolers, adored Damien like a second father. They called him Uncle Damien and often begged him to join their games or read them bedtime stories. Watching them grow, healthy, happy, and full of potential, filled him with pride he'd never experienced in boardrooms or business deals. Damien's own life underwent a profound shift. He scaled back his business commitments, focusing instead on philanthropy and mentoring young entrepreneurs. Inspired by the resilience he'd witnessed in Elena, he established the Cross Foundation, dedicated to supporting families facing homelessness and poverty. The foundation provided housing assistance, job training programs, and childcare services, ensuring that others could experience the same second chances Elena had received. At the foundation's launch event, Damien stood before a crowd of supporters, his voice steady but emotional. For years, I thought wealth was about money, he said, glancing at Elena and the twins sitting in the front row. But I was wrong. True wealth is measured in the lives we touch and the love we share. Tonight, I honor Elena, not just for her strength but for reminding me what really matters. The audience erupted into applause, many moved to tears by his sincerity. Among them was Margaret, the housekeeper who had witnessed Damien's transformation firsthand. He's finally found purpose, she whispered to a colleague. And so have those kids. For Elena and her children, Damien wasn't just a benefactor. He was the anchor they needed to navigate life's challenges. On tough days, when self-doubt crept in or memories of their struggles felt overwhelming, they turned to him for guidance and reassurance. You're stronger than you think, Damien would remind them gently. And you're never alone. We're a team. In turn, the twins reminded Damien of the joy that comes from simplicity. The laughter of shared jokes, the warmth of a hug, and the comfort of knowing someone loves you unconditionally. They filled the void left by years of isolation, teaching him that grief doesn't disappear but evolves into gratitude for the time spent together. One summer evening, as they sat on the balcony watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink, Elena turned to Damien. Do you ever regret stepping in that night? She asked softly. Never, Damien replied without hesitation. That night changed everything. For all of us. Mia smiled, leaning against her brother. Maybe it was destiny. I think so too, Damien said, pulling them close. Looking back, Damien realized that finding Elena and her children on that park bench wasn't coincidence. It was fate. Their presence had forced him to confront his regrets, rediscover his humanity, and redefine success. Through them, He learned that wealth isn't about accumulating possessions but about building relationships that enrich your soul. Elena and her children carried this lesson forward in their own way. Whenever they achieved something meaningful, they visited the park where it all began, leaving flowers and handwritten notes beside the bench. "Thank you for seeing us," Elena wrote in one note. "We wouldn't be here without you." Reading those words always brought tears to Damien's eyes. His legacy lived on, not just through the foundation or the lives it touched, but through the family they'd created together. As the years rolled on, Damien, Elena, Lucas, and Mia continued growing alongside each other, learning and loving deeply. They faced challenges, celebrated victories, and embraced every moment with gratitude. Together, they proved that even the most broken pieces can form something beautiful when held together with care. Because family isn't defined by blood. It's forged through acts of kindness, resilience, and unwavering support. And in honoring his decision to step forward that fateful night, Damien discovered the greatest gift of all: the power of love to heal, transform, and endure. Damien, Elena, and her children's story reminds us that even in our darkest moments, a single act of kindness can spark a chain reaction of hope, healing, and transformation. Their journey, from a cold park bench to a life filled with love and purpose, shows us the incredible power of compassion, empathy, and connection. And now, it's your turn to carry that light into the world. Take a moment to think about the people around you, your family, friends, coworkers, neighbors, or even strangers you pass by. Any one of them could be silently facing battles you can't see. Grief, fear, loneliness, or uncertainty. What if you were the one who made a difference? Start small but be intentional. Hold the door for someone juggling too much. Check in on a quiet friend. Leave a thoughtful note for a coworker who's been down. What may seem like a tiny act to you could mean the world to someone else. Speak up when it counts. Just like Damien stood up for Elena, use your voice to defend those who feel voiceless. Stand against unfair treatment. Let someone who's struggling know they're not alone. Courage doesn't always shout. It often whispers, "I'm here for you." Support others on their healing journeys. Whether you volunteer, offer mentorship, or simply check in with someone who's hurting, your support could be the boost they need to keep going. Believing in someone, especially when they don't believe in themselves, can change everything. Challenge how we see others. Society too often overlooks people based on appearances, past mistakes, or tough circumstances. Let's break that pattern. Choose to see deeper. Treat everyone with respect, no matter their story. True heroes are made by choosing empathy. Share stories that inspire. Stories like Damien and Elena's show how ordinary kindness leads to extraordinary change. Pass it on to your friends, coworkers, or social networks. You never know who might need the reminder that compassion still matters. Look around your own community. What needs attention? Is there a local shelter needing volunteers? Can you start a small fundraiser to help struggling families? Every action, no matter the size, has impact, especially when we work together. Tell us your story. Have you been moved by someone's kindness or stepped up for someone in need? Share it with us. It could inspire someone else to do the same. Personal stories create powerful connections and remind us that none of us are alone. Work for change on a bigger scale, too. While everyday kindness makes waves, lasting progress requires systemic change. Get involved with causes that lift others up. Advocate for policies that protect vulnerable communities. Let your voice push for a better world. Remember, heroes aren't born. They're created through choices, to show up, to care, to take action. You don't need money or a title to make a difference. You just need heart. Let's carry forward the message of stories like this by becoming living examples of kindness and courage. Imagine the impact if every person reading this chose just one kind act today. A smile, a helping hand, a simple "you matter." That's how transformation begins. So what will your ripple effect be? Will you offer time, resources, or simply your presence to someone in need? Whatever it is, know that every act matters. Each one sends waves of positivity further than we can see. Start now. Be the spark. Let's reshape the future, one meaningful act at a time. Together, we can build a more compassionate world where everyone feels seen, supported, and empowered. Because courage and kindness aren't just traits, they're daily decisions. So go on, choose compassion. Choose action. The ripple starts with you.